Elishama, son of Amihud, did not feel like a foreigner in the land of Egypt. And he certainly did not feel liberated as he walked in the middle of nowhere with his family and all the possessions he could fit in a bundle on top of his donkey in the middle of the night. You see, Elishama was descended from Egyptian nobility. His ancestor, Joseph, was given by Pharaoh himself as a wife, the daughter of Potiphera, priest of the sun god. And Elishama channeled the power of the sun in the fire at the family forge, where he practiced his trade as a blacksmith, a trade that was practiced by his father and his grandfather and his great-grandfathers before him. As he walked, his two young sons perched atop the bundle on the back of the donkey, sound asleep. His wife and their newborn daughter walking beside him. Elishama mourned the loss of the family forge back in the land of Goshen. And he grumbled in his heart against this troublemaker, Moses. And he cursed the white cloud they were following that would block his first view of the rising sun. And so, as shouts of alarm rose about him, and Elishama turned and on the western horizon saw a cloud of dust rise, and he heard the faint hooves of horses galloping. The first feeling he had inside of himself was not fear, it was relief. Finally, Pharaoh and the mightiest army in the world has come to put an end to this madness. But no sooner did relief rise in his heart than confusion descended upon his mind. Because all at once, the pillar of cloud rose from the earth in front of him, revealing a beautiful rising sun. And as the cloud moved up over their heads, Elishama's gaze fell upon the light of the sun in pinks and yellows and oranges, stretching towards him over the vast waters of a great sea that was blocking their movement eastward. The cloud continued over top of them and settled between the Israelites and the advancing Egyptian army. But Elishama was transfixed by the view of the rising sun, a vision that was upset by a great and mighty wind that came rushing past their company, stinging their skin with the desert sand. So Elishama took his sons and wrapped them in their tunics to keep the sand out of their eyes and their mouths. And as he turned his shielded gaze back east, Elishama witnessed the most amazing thing he had ever seen. The great sea that stretched out before them began to pile on top of itself. The waves climbed one on top of another, forming a great wall that reached high up into the air and revealing a path of dry ground from one side of the sea to the other. The people all around Elishama stirred again and began to move forward. And so he secured his sons on the donkey, put his arm around his wife, and began to move forward as well. Soon he was in the drying, soft sand of the surf, and he made his way down a steep decline, past bright coral and flopping fish, and green sea plants. And he made his way down that incline to a wide sea floor that opened before him. And as he walked, the sun traced its line in the sky over his head. And Elishama's gaze was fixed on the tall sea wall that was held by a power he had never witnessed before. Who was this Yahweh, anyway? All day long, the Israelites walked on the sea floor. And just as the sun began to set behind the cloud in the west, the last of the Israelite company began to make their way up the steep incline on the far side of the sea. And Elishama watched as the cloud behind them raised up once again, this time revealing the silhouetted army of the Egyptians. And no sooner did he see their formidable figure behind them that they began to move with astonishing speed down the western ravine and on to the sea floor. And Elishama thought, what took the Israelites a full day to walk across, the Egyptian army surely would cover in a matter of minutes. And as the last Israelites scrambled up out of the surf, Elishama saw a figure standing with an arm outstretched over where the water once flowed. And the wall of water began to tremble. And just as the last Egyptian horse made its way to the seafloor and broke into a full gallop, the bottom of the wall of water gave way. And the mightiest army the world had ever known was overcome in an instant by the sheer power of a sea returning to its home. And Elishama watched as the water settled back into its familiar place. And once again, the brilliance of the sunset stretched towards him in reds and oranges. And Elishama knew that the power that secured their passage across the Red Sea is the power that controls the sun as well. Soon, shouts of celebration began to rise around them. And among the women, a soft chant began and got louder and louder. And soon people were dancing. Elishama's wife took their newborn daughter and held her high above her head and took the song on her smiling lips. And before he knew what he was doing, Elishama had taken his boys off the donkey, one on each shoulder, and joined in the dance. I will sing to the Lord, who is high and exalted. Horse and rider have been thrown into the sea. And as he danced, Elishama knew that his sons would grow to know the Lord in a land that was far from Egypt. And he knew that their descendants, as long as their children and their children's children walked beneath the sun, they would tell the story of how God delivered the Israelites from the hand of the Egyptians that day in every place that they called home.